Welcome to the 100% Wild Podcast. This is episode number 9, and I'm Mark Kenyon of Wired to Hunt. With me today again are Matt and Mark Drury. Hey guys, how are you today?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Hi, Mark.
I'm doing well. Excited to jump into our question today because, as we were just talking about off air, I need some help on this very topic. So I'm counting on you, Mark, to give me that secret sauce to make it happen.
Do you have secret sauce?
We'll try.
This is a tough one today.
I think it is a tough one, but it's an important subject.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So many people can relate to it. I feel like there might not be, and I don't want to give away too much, but the topic of access, the challenge of access, is maybe one of the greatest obstacles to hunters today in many areas, myself included many times. I'm sure you both have encountered this to a degree too. So I think anything we can do to talk about this is going to help a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Well, without further ado, the question of the day is brought to you by Analogics. Protect your herd with the power of science.
Hi, my name is TJ Dennis from Columbia, South Carolina. And my question is in regard to asking permission to hunt on private lands. Mark Kenyon, I know that you specifically talked about this many times on Wired to Hunt on the podcast, and I really want to take you up on your advice here and expand my options for hunting this coming season, but I'm not exactly sure how to approach it in terms of exactly what to say and any other tips that you've learned and best practices in regard to this. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Thanks.
That's very tough.
It is tough, but it's a very good question, and it's very relevant to the state of our hunting industry as a whole. And I would say, in short, it's probably not like it was 15 years ago. I mean, or even before that, I used to go and never get turned down in Iowa. Like, there was a lot of places we hunted permission for many, many, many years. And it was just a simple knock on the door and, hey, care if we go hunt? Oh, go ahead, kill them all, Well, that's changed. And anymore, it's almost not about asking permission as much as it is formulating a relationship and a plan with that landowner. If you've got a targeted landowner, he's going to have an extreme level of comfort with you and almost be your friend, which is, you should have that anyway, before he's going to allow you access on his property, I think, anymore. There are still some areas that, due to supply and demand, in other words, there's a lot of land with not a lot of hunters. Like when we go west every year, Kansas, Nebraska, it's still a knock away. You care if we go kill turkey? Go kill them all.
Yeah.
We go out to Nebraska each year, and that's part of the fun, just asking permission and getting permission on these places. But that's because there's not a lot of turkey hunters asking them, so they're very willing to allow you to go. If you're down in South Carolina and the supply or the demand is heavy for a lot of hunting, you got to work on that relationship building. And it sounds cliche, but whether that takes going out and mending fence, whether that means helping around the house, helping with chores, whatever it is, you've got to find some common ground with that landowner and give them a reason to allow you to, as opposed to just a knock on the door.
Supplying them with some of the processed venison,
Absolutely.
Baling hay in the summer, whatever it takes. Those are some of the things that I've always heard you guys talk about that can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
On our lease, we have a landowner just to the north of us, and a lot of the deer are on that part of the on that part of the land, and we always say, man, I wish we could hunt that spot. So finally this winter, Aaron Bennett and I went over to the guy's house and knocked on his door, and he was he's a farmer. He was probably in his early 70s, and he invited us into his home, and we sat and talked to him for probably 45 minutes. And I just said to him, I said, hey, I know you guys have people that lease this. Would you ever be interested? I'm not saying that we're trying to kick them off or anything like that. If you're ever interested, in doing something different, we would love to be the next guy you call. And he said that he knows he could probably get more money from somebody else, anybody else, because these guys are paying, they've been there 20 years. and it's a group of like 5 or 6 what were high school buddies now grown up, and he said they pay $10 an acre in an area that he could easily get 20, and he said he's just not interested because of the relationship. Back to your point, and I thought, you can't, that's great. And I said, hey, I'm not trying to get in between that by any means. So to your point, I think the closer bond you build with that landowner, the better.
Absolutely. It is all about relationship building, and it's not about what your desires are. Find out what they need. In other words, do you need somebody to watch over the property? Do you need more venison? Do you need help? Is there something I can do to benefit you? And can I pay your tax bill? Whatever it is, because there's something that landowner is going to need. And if the answer is no, then respect that and move on. And you got to be ready to receive, a no.
Yeah.
I mean, I was prepared for it through high school because every girl I asked out said no, other than Tracy. But that got me prepared for later in life to get told no a lot from other landowners. So you just got to be prepared for some rejection.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And I think just as important as all this, and this kind of goes back to the whole relationship thing, just as important as getting permission is keeping permission. By default, because of how difficult it is to get permission, once you do, respect that landowner. Do all the things you just mentioned, Mark and Matt, about helping them out on whatever it is they need help with. Because once you have that access, you really need to work hard to keep that. Because there's so many reasons you can lose permission these days that everything you can do to try to keep that is going to be helpful.
It's interesting you say that. We had Hank Parker in here as one of the judges on Dream Season The Journey this year. And there was a scene that played out, and one of our teams, they killed a doe, and they were on somebody else, they were on, I don't think it was an outfitter, I think it was a lease or something. And the farmer had beans planted. And Hank said something to the effect that, I wouldn't have walked through those beans to get to that deer. I would have walked the long way around the perimeter to respect that landowner. And I've never heard it put that way, and I thought it just like a light bulb went off. It's like, geez, that's something so simple but so meaningful.
It is, man. Constant respect will get you a long way in life, and it's just about that networking and treating people right. And whether that's at church, at the coffee shop, or online, the modern way to network, you can't go wrong by bringing the subject up, talking through it, and all of a sudden opportunities start to open up that you didn't have. So you get in life what you ask for, but then once you're there, you got to be prepared to give a little bit back and make sure you're taking care of their needs and not just your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so true. I've had a couple interesting situations come up where it was just a matter of being there, where sometimes things can fall into place. When I was in Montana this past summer, I was trying to find a place to hunt out there. And so I was driving all around these areas that I was interested in possibly hunting, just glassing from the road and scouting. And I happened to come upon a couple guys who had a flat tire. I stopped, helped them out, and through that conversation, lo and behold, I got hunting permission. Or last week, I was out doing the same thing, scouting here in Michigan, trying to glass out some new areas. And in this case, I was just on the side of the road watching deer, and I saw a truck pull up behind me. And I was like, oh, geez, I'm going to get yelled at for looking at deer. And it was just a guy who wanted to chat about what I was doing, and I told him, and we just struck up a conversation. And again, lo and behold, he happens to own the land that I'm watching this 150 class buck on. And, he wants to go get coffee sometimes, so that could lead to hunting permission. So it's funny how sometimes serendipity can play a part if you just let it. If you be a kind, genuine person and put yourself out there and start relationships, you never know what might happen.
Well, because there's a good chance somewhere down the line they may have had a bad experience, in a lot of instances. So I think, but to your point, doing the right thing, even if it works out or it doesn't, is always the best foot forward.
And think forward. Don't think about, I want to hunt there tomorrow. Think about, I want to do what I have to do to be hunting there next year.
Yeah.
Don't be so self-serving. Most people are selfish these days, and they want to go hunt today. Well, don't wait till November the 6th to go knock on a door and go, hey, can I go hang in a stand in your back 80? You need to be doing the work now to have the relationship building so that next year you might have a spot, because hunting anyone's land or walking on that land is a privilege, and it needs to be addressed as such.
And to that point, that farmer that I was speaking about, he said to us, he goes, hey, if you guys ever shoot a deer and it goes on my property, you don't need to call me. You just go on it. I said to him, I was like, there's no way we will ever do that. I said, I will always call you or knock on your door if that case ever happens. So even simple things like that, I think, even though he said do it, it's just better to ask permission always.
It is absolutely better to ask permission and do it in a decent manner. Mm-hmm. You may want to go up there, make sure you're at the top of your game, make sure you're dressed appropriately. Mm-hmm. Feel free to bring over some coffee, whatever it takes. It's always fun in Nebraska each year. I'll go back to that story because I could only think of 1 or 2 times where someone said no, and they almost felt bad saying no because those people are so nice. I told Terry, I said, it was like rewinding the clock about 50 years because they are so nice and so accommodating. And we would meet one guy, and he would take us around town and introduce us to 3 or 4 other landowners to get us permission. And it's just, but we treat everybody with respect out there. We buy them dinners. We do whatever we have to do to make sure they feel good about our presence there. And it's nice. If you treat people nice, you're going to get treated nicely in return.
There's one story that you told me that it didn't work out, where Wade had to take us.
Oh, it was the best. Well, we ended up getting permission.
Oh, you did?
We did. But the best part was the process we went through. Okay, so there's this strutter strutting in this green field, and we kept asking, around who owns that, and they finally lead us to the house that owns this property. So we go up to the house, and the doors are kind of run down a little bit, and Wade he'll ask anybody, so he goes, well, I'll go up to the door and I'll talk to him, so he goes and knocks on the door, and this young lady comes to the door, and she starts to open the door, and it cracks about that far, and a dog takes the door out of her hand, comes rushing out, and nails Wade right in the butt and latches on. And Wade's running and screaming like a little girl, and that dog's chasing him down and biting his hind end. And I mean, we laughed until we cried, And we ended up getting permission there, and we went and killed that particular turkey. So, and Wade took one for the team that morning. I'll tell you that much,
Dogs you really do need to watch out for. I've
time,
had some
man.
Close encounters too.
Beware of dog there's a sign for a reason.
Exactly. Well, that dog didn't like Wade. I know that.
Kind of related to that, I do want to share kind of my personal process for when I am trying to go out to a new area and find property, because sometimes you just don't have that opportunity to build a relationship beforehand. So maybe TJ's in a situation like that where he needs to make it happen right now. So I just thought it'd be real quick. I'll run through this process. What I always try to do is I try to come into it with a game plan. I think that asking permission today, especially in areas where there's a lot of hunters and not a lot of supply, it's a numbers game. You're going to have to ask a lot of people. So what I do beforehand is I look at a plat map and I look at an aerial map, and I pick out 15 or 20 different properties that, based on property lines and what the property looks like on the map, I'm interested in hunting. I then go and look at, a lot of counties now have GIS systems. You can just Google, such and such county GIS, and you'll get essentially their geographic information data for their whole county. So you'll see all the properties, see the landowner names, get their addresses, all that kind of stuff. You can actually put together, what I do is I put together a list of 15 or 20 properties, the landowner names, where they live, all that stuff, and then I just plan on a full day. And by doing it all in one day, I kind of build up momentum. I don't know how it is for you guys, but I always have a little bit of nerves. I just don't want to go up and knock on someone's door. It's a little bit of an awkward situation. So I just kind of have to psych myself up to do the first one. I know the landowner's name, so I go walk up to the door, say, hi, Mr. Johnson, and end up talking with them. And, I have a basic kind of way I open those conversations. But an important thing to note is that one of the ways I've had the most success with this is that, you're going to get a no 98% of the time. But I always continue that conversation and then ask, do you happen to know anyone else I should talk to, or anywhere you could point me to? And that has led to almost all of my success. It's just getting in there and talking to a lot of people. 1 out of 20 times it might work out, or they'll point you in a direction that helps. So I do a full day of that. I kind of snowball, so that by the time I'm to house 7, 8, 9, 10, I've got a good flow. I'm comfortable. I'm not nervous anymore. And even in a state like Iowa, I mean, you guys know there's a lot of people there that come to Iowa to get these big bucks. Well, last year I showed up without anywhere to hunt, and I knocked on 15 doors, took a full day, and I got 1,200 acres to hunt. Wow. So it's possible. You don't need to pay big money to hunt these states if you're willing to put the time in.
It's possible. It's out there. I mean, out in Nebraska, I bet we've gained permission on 5,000 or 6,000 acres to turkey hunt. We don't deer hunt out there, but I think if we asked a few of them, they would allow that as well. And one other tip, I think those are all excellent tips, Mark. And who could tell him no? I mean, look at this guy. I mean, who could possibly tell him no? But one other tip, like if you intentionally go and meet the wife first and she gains a comfort level with you, it's amazing how much influence she has over those decisions, and that's why we always send Wade to the door, right?
Good looking young guy,
everybody wants to meet Wade, man.
Funny.
There's your pro tip for the day right there.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to try to take what you said there, combine with my experience, and in 2 days, I think I'm going to be knocking on doors. So hopefully I'll have a good story next time to tell of how this all worked out.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Look forward to it. Good luck.
Awesome. Well, anything else on this, Mark or Matt, we should cover?
I don't think so. I think we did a pretty good job on this one.
Good luck. Don't get discouraged, and make sure you give it time. It's going to take a lot of time.
In the back of your mind, just keep thinking, when Mark was in high school, he had a lot of no's from girls. So I'm just going to get a lot of no's.
Yeah. Use that experience from high school, boys.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, if you want us to answer your question on a future episode, make sure to go to wiredtohunt.com/100%wild. You can leave us your voicemail question, and we'll try to tackle it in a future week. So be sure to check that out. Subscribe to the audio version of the podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to be watching the video versions and subscribe there over at the Drury YouTube channel. And Matt, I'm sure you want to share a few things as well?
Absolutely. While you're over there on the Drury Outdoors YouTube channel, check out some of our cutting room floor footage from 13. We have some really interesting stuff. We actually had a really cool piece of Mark's Bucktober after the kill happened. Of course, you only get about a minute of that in the actual show on TV, but there's 45 minutes of a real reaction. So I think we got about 20 minutes of that on the cutting room floor. It's real emotional. It's real raw, unedited, pretty neat. And so I would definitely recommend checking that out and checking out all of our DoD TV on YouTube. And by all means, this fall, make sure to keep in touch with us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to be going live on Facebook a lot. We're going to be trying to get as much information out to our viewers as possible throughout the whole process. So you're going to want to check us out. And you can always find us at DruryOutdoors.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Thank you, Mark.